Hi, Sean Bougie, surplusfundsriches.net, and this video is going to talk about the coming storm. Is it going to be Armageddon or opportunity? And this isn't designed to get you guys all fired up. I'm going to look at 5 issues confronting our industry covered in this video. Those are going to be number one, housing values. I am going to do a wrap up at the end. Housing values, are they going up or down? These are the 5 main factors to consider going forward for the next couple of years. Housing values, number one, are they going up or down? Number two, current economic issues, consumer debt, inflation, all of that, what kind of impact are we going to see there? The election, the impact on the stock market of that, also the wealth effect on that, and investment in general, not just general public, but investors as well. Number four, regulation. We're going to talk about investor limits, some of the things that have been proposed, particularly in the state level, and the impact of disreputable companies. And finally, county budgets. Is there going to be a greater need for foreclosure in the tax arena? And how is that going to affect mortgage? So let's get into it, guys. So the first thing to talk about is housing values. Are they going up or down? And what's the impact on surplus funds? Guys, this is a national overview. Real estate is very local. Some markets are going to bomb out. This always happens regardless of what's going on in general. There's going to be some markets that are going to bottom out. There's going to be some markets that exceed expectations. But on a national level, I'm going to break this down for you. The standard reason that people are giving for predicting a downturn in housing values is the interest rate. But if you look at it historically, guys, the interest rate is not extraordinarily high. In fact, it is currently a relatively reasonable rate. I know those of you guys that are out there that just started looking for houses right after rates jumped from 3 to 7.5. Those of you guys that are out there seeing that, you're like, oh my God, the rates are so high. Hey guys, 7.5 is not a horrible rate. But here's what you gotta understand. The real issue right now is the lack of inventory to meet demand. Whenever this is less than 5 months worth of houses to buy on the market, 5 months worth of inventory. In other words, there's 5 months worth of houses, 5 months of demand. Whenever it's less than 5 months, it is a seller's market. And that is going to continue because the market is seized up. It is seized up because people like me who bought in 2020, their house shot through the roof, and I got 3%, 3.25, 3.125, whatever it was, interest rate on the house. And if I was decide I wanted to sell right now, get us something small or whatever, I'm not going to do it because I would pay the same payment for a smaller home because of the rates right now. It's locked. And that's a big reason why you're not seeing the inventory go up right now on the resale end. The other side of it is with new construction, the builders are crazy. They're tired of the crazy regulation. They're just completely tired of it. I have friends that are builders. They're fed up right now. The average appreciation historically has been 4.7 to 5%. We're going to continue to see that. Sorry, guys, if those of you guys are on the fence that are thinking, well, I'm just going to wait and it's going to drop. This house that's at 600,000 is going to drop to 550. Then I'll buy it. That is not going to happen. That $600,000 house is going to go to 625, 630 over the next year. That is the normal appreciation rate. But the thing is that appreciation rate is on top of a huge run up during and directly after the pandemic. So the bottom line is the average surplus funds we're working with right now is 50K. That's going to continue at that level or even go up a little bit. And this is just something I pulled off. I wanted you guys to see that I'm not just talking out of my tail. I know I misspelled this when I did the Google search, but NAR, National Association of Realtors, you guys know I'm not a fan. I think they're the real estate mafia, but NAR says the existing home sales data showed a 3.2-month housing supply level of March 2024. That's the most recent thing I could get out of NAR. If you certainly comment if you can find a more recent one, but 3.2 months puts this solidly in a seller's market. So the question becomes at this point, because housing is going to continue in its current value, right? The question becomes, what about the volume foreclosures and surplus funds that are therefore going to be created? That brings us to current economic issues, consumer debt, inflation. Guys, the economy in general is not doing well. 1.1 trillion credit card debt. Inflation is outpacing income. We've got higher property tax bills. Mortgage delinquency rates in the United States from 2000 to first quarter 2024 are here. You can see what's going on. We had a downward trend, right? Then boop, have a downward trend. We're going back up again, getting set to go back up again. on mortgage delinquency rates and therefore mortgage foreclosures. As far as volume, we will see an uptick in mortgage and tax foreclosures as the higher mortgage payments and higher tax payments alone, if it's a paid off property, makes it impossible for some people to stay in the house and pay the mortgage. Or in the case where there is no mortgage, the property taxes alone. I've talked about this before. So what people don't understand is they think if they get a mortgage, monthly mortgage amount to pay, that's going to stay like that forever. That's not true. Mortgage is made up of four parts: principal, interest, taxes, property taxes, and insurance on the property. PITI. The tax portion has gone up the last 3 to 4 years since the pandemic, and the reason it's gone up is housing values have gone up. Therefore, taxes on the property is based on the value of the property. You pay a certain percentage based on what the property is worth, and all properties in general, national, I understand there's outliers in this, but the property has gone up dramatically in value. Therefore, the tax bill has gone up dramatically. If the house is paid off, they're still going to have to come up with more money to pay their taxes on an annual basis. If it's not paid off, their mortgage payment has gone up the last 3 to 4 years, and that's putting people at risk. That's putting them in peril of not being able to pay their mortgage. It's really that simple because the mortgage bill has gone up. It's gone up because taxes have gone up. Really wanted you guys just to see what I'm talking about with credit card debt and why that's so important to me to look at. You look at 2005 forward, 2005 quarter 1 to now, you can see that this isn't just a gradual increase like it was. It has popped up, and this is a record, 1.1 trillion. Okay, that's huge. That's bad news. So the economy obviously is going to have a drag on this, right? On people being able to buy. I understand that, but there's so much pent up demand that there's going to be plenty of buyers that can still make the buy. Investors will be a little gun shy. I'll get into that more later. They're going to be a little gun shy, but they're still going to be buying property because we're still going to see an increase in property over time. Here's the election. Now, I know a lot of you guys were thinking I'm going to jump in and endorse a candidate. I'm not going to do that. I think that's stupid. I'm in business to do business. My personal preferences as far as the election don't really count as far as my interaction with guys that I'm working with. So the election, the impact on the stock market is what I'm talking about, and that's called the wealth effect, and on investment. So the biggest impact on the election is uncertainty. Okay, I'm in October now. It's coming up. When this uncertainty hits the stock market, it's already begun to do that. There will be an adjustment, and you see this a lot during election years. There's going to be an adjustment, and then everybody's going to kind of sort it out and work forward. If the public sees their 401k drop in value, and they will, this erases the wealth effect. The wealth effect, we really studied this in real estate when I was a broker because people would feel like they were wealthy because they were on paper. So it made it a little easier for them to make decisions to spend money and to go into debt. Okay, so the paper gains, that's going to be erased here for a little bit. It'll come back. This impacts consumer confidence, obviously, and therefore many investors and or possible second home buyers. It will also impact institutional buyers. Now, guys, or investors, you need to understand something. 401ks, a lot of people, when they hear that, they say, oh, that's for the wealthy. No, that's a lot of middle America. We're not talking about just the wealthy right now. This is going to be a hit, middle America and upper end. Even with investors making up to 10 to 15% of all the house buys, because a lot of people, there's a lot of talk about that. Oh, investors are a part of the market and they're driving it up. The impact is negligible, guys. With these investors pulling back, putting the money in the mattress for a little while, that's going to be okay because we still have the general public wanting to buy the homes. So I'm not worried about absorption. I'm not worried about properties coming on the market, foreclosures coming on the market, and them sitting, okay, and creating kind of a downward spiral. That's not going to happen. I see this as really a net zero effect because the housing inventory is low and appreciation is going to stand at the normal range. It's also going to be short-lived. Like I said, there are policy considerations that could have an effect. Certainly, you guys we're finally starting to hear policy more on platforms from the presidential hopefuls. Certainly, they could have an effect, but there's going to be a workaround to that, and people will get past that over time. Here's the big one, guys, that a lot of you guys probably didn't expect me to talk about: regulation. There are some calls for people to limit investors as far as flipping property. The reasoning seems to be that if there's an investor, if investors are competing with the normal general public, then they're driving the values of the homes up and therefore making housing less affordable. That's simply not the case, even with 10 to 15% of them being involved. 10 to 15% of the sales going through investors. It's not, they're not driving the market, guys. The market drives the market, overall demand. Okay. Also, though, there's an impact of disreputable companies. That second regulation consideration is the crackdown we're beginning to see on how surplus funds are dispersed. This regulation is a result of disreputable companies not paying claimants or making false promises. We're seeing a lot of that these days. This is going to have an impact, guys, on anyone who's attempting to use assignments to retrieve surplus funds or those folks retrieving surplus without an attorney. Courts are starting to demand, in some instances, the claimant actually show up at a court hearing and that checks are only to be cut to the claimant. There's even one state that's starting to do ACH debits directly into the claimant, the last owner's account, when they claim surplus funds. You're gonna have to come up with workarounds on this. That cuts out the surplus funds retrieval companies, obviously, in some of these states. If you use an attorney and you use ethical business practices and strong contracts, you are fine. And this is one of the reasons why people buy one of our programs, because there's a partnership built in, right? So they know that we're going to handle the back end of this and we're going to keep everything copacetic. But if you, again, use an attorney, use ethical business practices and strong contracts, you're fine. If you don't have an attorney, you don't conduct yourself ethically, or you don't have strong contracts, you will not survive, period. Last consideration of the five, and then I'm going to tie all this up, tie it up in a bow. County budgets, and is there going to actually be a need for foreclosure? Guys, the last thing here is the status of counties' budgets. Of course, this will impact tax foreclosures because the county will foreclose quicker on folks who are delinquent on property taxes because they're in a budget shortfall. It will also impact mortgage foreclosures because the higher taxes from higher evaluations is going to raise that. We talked about this earlier. It's going to raise the mortgage payment, right? Counties are struggling with the same thing you and I are. Higher prices from vendors and retailers, they're dealing with that. Higher wages than they had to pay in pre-pandemic times. And the pandemic was a huge drain on the counties. They're still recovering, guys. They're still trying to bail out from the pandemic and what the costs they incurred during that. It didn't just affect individuals. The county government also took a hit on that. With tax foreclosures, you're going to see a noticeable impact not only from the higher taxes, which is based on higher property values, but also from the county's need to collect on property taxes more efficiently and aggressively to meet their budgets. They're going to come more frequently, as far as monthly, if they used to do it quarterly, and they're not going to play. They're not going to give people as much rope as they used to, as much leeway. So what's the takeaway from all this, right? I've talked about a lot of different factors. Number one, foreclosures will go up. Number two, the pent-up demand and low inventory means the foreclosures will be absorbed and values will hold. So the average surplus will continue to be above 50 grand. Now, when I say average surplus above 50, the minimum we go after, depending on the program, is 20 or 35 grand. So obviously that's going to pull it up a little bit, but the average we're going after right now that I'm seeing is above $50,000, and that's going to continue, and it may actually go up quite a bit. The business, as a result of those two factors, will be strong. We are recession proof. However, regulation and those disreputable companies will make it more difficult to navigate the business. If you don't have legal representation, or if you don't conduct yourself ethically, or you don't have strong contracts, you're going to be in trouble. In short, the strong, well-positioned individuals and companies in this business will do even better over the next few years. The flash in the pan, seat of the pants guys, they're going to go out of business. It's that simple. Get a chance, check us out, surplusfundsriches.net. Thanks for taking the time, guys. Please like and subscribe. Have a great day.